Hello and welcome to another Scotland Rugby News podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness Egg-Shaped. I'm going to try and get it right this time. Him over there, Mr. Gavin Harper, editor extraordinaire and the man with the words. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well, thanks. You've redeemed yourself after 2 weeks in a row, getting me
I
the
know.
wrong way. So, yeah, well done.
Yeah,
We're off to a good start.
It's like when I'm shaving. or try to pluck my eyebrows. Look at the state of them. Anyway, good to see you. And I saw you yesterday at the Hive, which I, personally was a great day out for me, but another kind of waste of time for Scotland. I saw a wee bit of the game before the Uruguay USA game. I saw a tiny little bit of the Samoa game just after, but I was there for the Scotland Hong Kong game, and it's not really helping anybody winning by 100 points, is it?
Nah, I think we talked about it last week, but you don't learn a huge amount from being on either end of that scoreline. And actually, there was a period where I think Scotland scored. I think there was a couple of periods where Scotland scored like 3 tries in 5 minutes. 2 tries in basically 2 minutes, and it was like schoolboy rugby at times. There was bits of it that I thought, if this was a under 16s, under 18s schoolboy game, somebody would have put the Hong Kong lads out their misery long ago. And yeah, it was tough to watch. I think from a Scottish point of view, they obviously got a chance to rest plenty of players, and the ones who's kind of stepped in will be pleased with how that went. But chatting to Liam McConnell after, he was saying it was hard to keep their minds on that game, and I think there's something to be said about there shouldn't be international tournaments where the outcome is a foregone conclusion. I think rugby's got to move past that. So there needs to. I think World Rugby have work to do to make this an even more even playing field. But look, another 100 points. I would say, I don't know what you thought about this, but I was disappointed with the crowd for a Sunday afternoon.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually thought it was okay, but there was a lot of Hong Kong supporters there. So I think you're probably right from a Scotland perspective, but it was right smack bang in the middle of your Sunday. So that's a sizable commitment to have a, whatever it was, 2:30 kickoff. That means you're not really doing much beforehand, and you've not really got a massive opportunity to do much after. But it turned out lovely. I had to take my washing in before I left because of the shower, and I wish I'd left it out because it would have been bone dry by the time I got home. But the weather was decent. I think talking about levelling up, it's this daft thing of last year's results impact on the seedings this year, but it's a different set of bairns. So that's a bit that. So because Scotland lost to Uruguay, Japan and Scotland are 1 and 3, which means they go into the same group. And that's tough on teams like Hong Kong and Samoa, because it means they're pretty much getting 2 pastings instead of maybe just 1. And then, like you're saying, the others are a bit fairer, because now it's not just Scotland and Japan who are looking at 1 game. For Hong Kong and Samoa, they're also both looking at 1 game.
And I think that's the thing. And actually, when you look at the other pool, the top of that pool is much tighter than the.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like Scotland and Japan obviously have the same number of points, but then there's a huge gap to Samoa and Hong Kong, and that's like the other pool is actually more competitive. And I think if we could have balanced that out by having 2 competitive pools of games that, and let's be honest, like, what was it, 15 tries, 19 tries last Tuesday. Like, it's great to go and just watch a team score loads of points, but actually fans, and if you're trying to get new folk into rugby, you want to watch something that's a proper contest. And the 2 Scotland games so far haven't been. I think Friday night will definitely be. So I think my message to anybody who's free and in and around Edinburgh on Friday night would be get yourself to the Hive, because that could be it could be a cracking evening of rugby. And Scotland are on 7:30, 7:45.
Yeah.
But
Do you know the thing I like about the 20s, the women's games, that the level below the men's professional is still rugby. There's still, the scrums are reasonably competitive. The wingers tend to be fast, but quite often drop the ball. The centres, there tend to be one that runs straight and one that likes to take an outside break. The 10s kick well, but then every now and then they'd kick poorly, but then that makes it exciting. The 9s, I said this last week, and the 9s are a protected species, which really winds me up. But I actually thought both Hong Kong and Scotland's 9s were really lively. The Hong Kong scrum half, he's got 2 full caps for Hong Kong. So he's got a wee bit. He's played Premiership in Hong Kong. I thought Hector was trying really hard, and then Conor McAlpine. I think I was raving about him, and I still think he's a cracking player. Both were trying to snipe around, which I like, because otherwise it's just pass. The defence don't have to stay around the breakdown. So I actually quite like that. Freddie Douglas is just still an animal. I think that kid has got such a bright future. So there was bits in it that I really liked, but you're right. Friday night, 2 teams should be going at it, both reasonably quick, want to play to space. I think it could be an absolute belter, but having spoken to a few around both Scotland camp, Hong Kong camp, I think Scotland should win it.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the feeling, and I think it'd be interesting you say that about 2 teams that want to play. I actually wonder if Scotland's ability to play, which they've shown in the last 2 games, if they need to dial that back, and if they go, do you know what, we're going to be not 10-man rugby, but we're going to be set piece, and because the Maul's been outstanding so far, and you would think that Scotland's players might have more organisation, a wee bit more professionalism.
I'm not sure about that, because I don't think either 10 is particularly a kicker.
So it'll be an interesting one to see how if Kenny decides that they need to change things, or if they go, well, look, this is what's worked for us so far, and let's just keep doing what we're doing, and ultimately we'll be better than. I think that would say a lot about how much they look at Japan and how much respect they put on Japan if they choose to change their game. But it's certainly good to, I think, have those options where, we've talked about 20s in the past, and the sort of narrative around our 20s has been pretty negative. So, yeah, I think, look, it's not the competition they want to be in, but as we said last week, if they can go and win it, then for the boys to win something and on home soil would be a pretty cool achievement. So, yeah, let's hope they continue their good form.
I was sad for Morris having to come off injured, because I think the first choice back row is Liam, Freddie, and Tom Curry. I think that's your first choice, but he's a sizable impact to come off the bench if and when needed. I think there's a bit of depth in certain positions for Scotland that means when the player comes off the bench, it's going to be okay. But I do wonder, and I hope it's just because the game was not too easy, but it was one-sided. In both games, Scotland, you might have the stats, have conceded a lot of penalties. Yeah. I thought both teams were offside, in the centres on Sunday, which is that's not right. You shouldn't be giving away penalties there. I know you want to get up off the line, but surely give a yard, stay disciplined. Against Japan, those things might count a little bit more.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because that was one of the things Kenny Murray was disappointed with. He said their discipline was not poor, but it was an area they'll need to. And I think he kind of freely admitted that's something they'll have to work on. And I think, as you say, if they give away the number of daft penalties, particularly, I know folk get frustrated. There was one in the second half, and I genuinely can't remember who it was, but Scotland had given away a daft penalty for not rolling away, and somebody punted the ball 40 or 50 yards down the pitch, and the
Hawking.
ref and
Hawking.
it was Hawking, and the ref marched him 10 meters.
Yeah.
Now in a tight game, like those wee things could ultimately decide the result. So yeah, you hope that's not the case. But
I was sitting with my mate Mike Lacey, whose boy was playing at 15 for Hong Kong, and he's been training with the Hong Kong Sevens setup in Hong Kong for a year.
I thought he was in really tough circumstances. I thought he played.
Yeah,
he did all right.
His old man was gutted. The first kick went up and he guddled it, and his old man was. But Kira, he's lively. He's actually a 9, but because they've got a 9 that can play, he was playing at 15. But when Hawking kicked that ball away, he turned to me and said, "If that was Sevens, that's a yellow." And he's bang on, and I kind of hope that doesn't come into 15s. But those little niggly bits annoy me. And you're right, against Japan, if it comes, that could be a swing in momentum. A penalty that's just on the edge of his kicking range to all of a sudden a penalty that's well within his kicking range. He kicks a 3 or he kicks the corner, they catch and drive. What a silly little thing like that could cost you 3-7 points. Though those are the things that coaches end up looking like me with. That just
and actually,
that's annoying.
like we said to Kenny after the game, would you rather have had even one game that was more of a challenge? And I think he would have. I think he would rather have played a game that was semi-competitive, because
of course you do.
You know from being a coach, you want to test yourself in an environment where actually players are under pressure, not where, like, from 1 to 15, like everybody has an armchair ride, So, but
when I coached Murrayfield Wanderers, we won the East League 1, I think it was. We lost one game at North Berwick away all season, and we got to the Shield final at Murrayfield against Carrick, and we were winning, but we'd never had to exit the whole season. We'd played for everywhere, and that's kind of where Scotland are. They've not really had to exit, and that's what I was talking. Kind of like those exits could be really crucial. Getting the ball outside the 22, close at the halfway line, rather than just outside the 22, could be the difference. And we couldn't exit, and just before half time we made a hash of an exit. They ran and scored, and then the whole moment, like, it was one of those ones, the half-time team talk changed, because we went from this is going well to now we're in a game. Second half they took over and dominated. Now, Scotland are not there. Scotland are definitely not there, because these will be things they've been rehearsing probably against themselves. But you're right, not having that competitive edge. They've not actually seen the line out under pressure. Their scrums dominated, although they conceded a penalty at the scrum right at the end, which I think he pinged Ollie Blythe Lafferty for standing up. No wonder, he's about 7'20", and he was against somebody that was 3'2". Like that was a difficult one to manage, and they were going forward. So how he picked some of the scrum penalties, I don't know. But Scotland have dominated both games. Japan, I would imagine, will be stronger at set piece.
You would think, but again, it's an area traditionally they've struggled, having not seen them too much. It's hard to say, but yeah, we'll wait and see what Friday brings, I suppose. But you can imagine that, like, the Blythe Laffertys and all those first choice boys will be rolled straight back into the team, and Scotland will go absolutely full strength.
I think Hooker's an area of depth through the 20s.
It is, because I thought Seb Stephen was terrific.
He actually, he assisted a try where he was going full tilt off his left hand, executes a 2-on-1. Absolutely, like you're wanting to tap some centres on the shoulder and go, did you see that? That was class.
I thought the one had fallen off somebody's jersey when he ran through. I was like, wait a minute, that can't be a. First of all, the turn of pace, and then it was a great pass.
And he didn't slow down. It wasn't like I've got to stand still and get my hands in the right place. He absolutely nailed it.
When he made that break, I think there was 4 of them, and he had Hector, Finlay Doyle, and Colladi was on his other shoulder, and the easy ball would have been the wee one inside, or he could have quite easily given it to to Hector, who probably would have finished it, and he just went, "Nah, I'm giving the."
Yeah, I thought it was class.
The right pass was the one he gave, and yeah, fair play to him.
But then Jerry came on, made an impact as he would, because he's class and he's a mongrel.
But it was interesting seeing them both on the pitch at the end, because I think, and again, Liam spoke about this after the game, that actually they might end up with injuries and stuff. They might end up with the both of them on the pitch or folk out of position. So actually, they finished with 14 when Dylan Coburn limped off. So actually, probably wasn't a bad thing from that point of view, that they've tried a few kind of unusual combinations and stuff. So yeah,
he's a big lump of a boy, Dylan Coburn. What the?
Yeah, he is.
He's old man. I think his granny were sitting in front of me and they were saying they can't feed him fast enough. He's just
that sounds about right. He's a big lad.
Well, Malky McVee's boy, didn't he? He wasn't even in the squad, and he's a serious operator.
Yeah,
and I think
that's another position that there's decent depth. Rudy Hart's obviously been like a mainstay there, and he's gone on to play for Glasgow. But there feels like there's proper depth at second row, and we're back to talking about the same positions again, though. Hookers, second rows. Like, I'd love to be able to say, like the 20s have got three types. Fair enough, Ollie Blythe Lafferty's come on and he's been amazing the games he's played, but I'd love there to be more of them.
He's just a bear, yeah. There's a long way.
And he is. This is it. He wasn't even eligible to play in the Six Nations. So yeah, but wait.
It was good. I've really enjoyed it. I'm not able to make the Japan game, which I'm a bit gutted with, but hopefully I'll be there to see the game after, which I really hope is the one we all want it to be. It'd be interesting to know, Gav, if anybody is watching or listening, and they can send us a wee comment about what they thought about the 20s, what they thought about being at the Hive, what they think about the squad and moving forward, MD they're excited about. You're going to keep an eye on that, so I'm going to ask you to multitask, which worries me slightly.
It worries me. I think it worries me more than it worries you, which is alarming. But no, I'll keep an eye out for any comments that come in, and we will have a discussion about some of them.
Nice. Now, you stayed up late on Saturday night. I'm massively torn with this whole thing. Another Hong Kong buddy of mine who was at the game yesterday, his boy was playing 13, and Nige still fits in his Hong Kong 13 shirt that he was wearing to support, which I thought was class. But he's been living in Canada for the last 10 years, and he was saying, he said that Scotland team were able to take 70 off Canada. That probably tells you what sort of state Canadian rugby's in. Which breaks my heart, because Canada was one of those teams when I was a kid growing up. Yeah, they were tier 2, but they had a bit of battle. There was something there. There was, the amateur game, things were a bit, the playing field was probably a bit more level. But there was a lot of boys got to play, similar to the 20s. Harry Patterson gets his first international try, which I think's filled him up a bit. A few debutants. Who Sean, what was your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I think similar to you, I said this on Wednesday or Thursday when we were on last week, that I expected Scotland to win and win pretty comfortably. I actually came away thinking Scotland should have scored 100 points there. No disrespect to any of the lads who won a cap at the weekend, but that was a third or fourth choice Scotland team. If we had, selected anything like a first choice, that could have been really, really ugly. I thought, in terms of individual performances, it's hard to judge when the opposition is so limited. That said, Dylan Richardson was pretty good. He got a wee bit greedy near the end. There was a wee pick and go when Scotland had about a 10-man overlap, and he fancied a hat-trick. Look, I think in the circumstances, would you or I have done the same thing? Probably.
Hat-trick.
I mean, if we were in that position...
I know I'm going to have to dream about that. I've never been close. He's the one...
I don't think I've scored 3 tries in my whole rugby career.
He's the one that probably on social media has been name-checked the most, because there's obviously players on the tour that some of us didn't know a huge amount about. So I think the positives I'm taking here, it's brought to our attention who's available, who's there, who can maybe apply pressure on the names we do know. And he's one that we're probably all looking at because George is away to Japan. Johnny Matthews has been left behind, which would suggest maybe he's not in the thoughts. Dave Cherry, Ewan Ashman, Rambo and Fraser. It feels like we're at a point now where there's chance for somebody to put up their hand and go, do you know what, I'm your hooker.
Yeah, and I think he did that. He's taken that opportunity, and like for me, he's not available for the last game, Dylan Richardson. So get him in again this weekend, even if it means Ashman coming off the bench. I think Paddy Harrison will get his chances in South America. So to me, that's the logical selection. I also thought it was good to see that Richardson moved to the back row because, again, if you're looking at a Six Nations or a World Cup, like that flexibility in a squad's so important that it was more than the game was more than one for him to go and do that. I thought the other players that stood out for me, everybody I think has talked about Harry Patterson. To me, that wasn't a huge surprise given the way he played against France. Like, I thought he was first class in that game, and actually I thought he was first class again. I just hope that whacked his cheek is just a whack, and it doesn't flare up into anything more. Haven't heard that it has, so that's a good sign, I suppose. But the Sale pair, I thought Gus Warr and Aaron Reid were both really, really lively. I thought Aaron Reid, particularly when he got any kind of opportunity he got, he looked to make a bit of a difference. So he's an interesting one. But Gus, I think, can add real competition at 9. And
right, hold the bus then. Who is Ben White your first choice for Scotland?
I think with Finn at 10, yes. I think because for me, when the big downfall of the game in Italy was that George and Finn together was too loose. So I think I want the control at 9. So I want Ben White at 9 and Finn Russell at 10. But if for any reason I have to change my 10 and Ben Healy or Adam Hastings or somebody else comes in there, I'd think about changing the 9 as well.
Right, so now you're Gregor and you're picking you've got a proper test match coming up. Finn Russell's going to play 80 minutes.
Yeah.
You're not subbing Finn Russell.
Guaranteed.
So you started Ben White, so who's your replacement 9?
I think in that situation, I think George Horne, because I think he gives you the versatility of being able to fill in. He's done a job for Scotland in the past on the wing if you need him to.
So does that mean if you've got potentially go a 6-2 split, does Jamie Dobie get to play on the bench?
I mean, this is the other debate. Possibly, you then say, does Dobie leapfrog Horne? In another world, does Ward leapfrog White as the starter? Are they competing for different roles essentially?
But now, now we're not even talking about Gus Warr being anywhere near the squad.
This is it,
So we're looking at potentially 4 9s. Now here's the next issue: 2 of them are at the same club,
and that's going to be a problem, I think. And the worry for me is that how much game time is Dobie getting at 9? And that's been a problem. And that's why he's ultimately playing on the wing, because he can do a job there, but actually can't get in front of the guy who's become Glasgow's most important player. The dynamic there might change a wee bit. Tom Jordan's not, for all the things he is good at, he's not a great goal kicker. So George Horne's had to kick goals for Glasgow. Does that change when Adam Hastings comes in? Is there, who'll be Glasgow's kicker next year? And then you can afford to not have George on the field all the time if you've got Adam at 10. It's halfbacks, a total minefield. Second rows where I play, just put the head down and push, and it's easy.
I think this tour is bringing more people possibly at the party, and I'm not sure, because of who's missing, I'm not sure how many decisions are going to be tidied up. If anything, the waters are going to be even muddier after this, because we're not going to see any of them play with Finn. Blair's not there. So, unfortunately, Harry Patterson could be the best fullback in the world, but Blair's going to start the big games in the autumn and then the Six Nations.
And then there'll always be that caveat at the minute that Ollie Smith's injured. So actually, he was in the World Cup squad and came off the bench in the game against Ireland when Blair got hurt. So where does he fit in the ranking, the pecking order of Blair, himself, and Harry? And let's remember, Harry's hardly played. I don't think he's played 10 games for Edinburgh yet. So, you are right that there are sometimes more questions than answers. I thought another area that we had questions about, I thought, was the front row. I thought I was surprised that we weren't more dominant at set piece, but that came for me with the sort of caveat of playing on what looked like a pretty ropey plastic pitch. There was a few times Suz and Miller Mills were slipping pretty badly, so it's hard to tell. I thought in the loose, I thought Rory Sutherland particularly was pretty good.
For talking about all those, he could play there and he plays there in minutes. Personally, I would like to see Rory Sutherland get lots of minutes with Glasgow, because
totally agree.
I think if something was to happen to Pierre, we need whoever it is at Glasgow, because that's the only one we've got control over. The other props that are not playing in Scotland, we've no control over on their game time. So, moving across to tight head, Miller Mills is not often going to start for Northampton. So we're going to have to just kind of live with whoever's behind Xander, and he's likely going to play 80 most of the time, I think. I could be wrong, but there's others around there as well. But Suz, Jamie Batty's obviously, he's done well. He's going to have to get back. I think the loose head stock is probably deeper.
Yeah, it definitely is.
It
definitely is. I think when you look at some of the guys, like Nathan Macbeth came off the bench at the weekend, I think he's had a really good season and has developed this season, last 12 months. If you're picking a squad for an autumn test, he's probably not in it, because you would pick Sutherland, Batty, and Schumann. So I think it's tough, but it's good that on that side there's competition. I think the other side is still a problem. Javan Sebastian will probably benefit from Nell's retirement, but yeah, look, it's a bit of a minefield. I think there's obviously 3 weeks more. I think we'll go back to a more typical Scotland team. I think there'll be. So Gregor was talking about making 15 changes possibly for Friday night. I wouldn't be hugely surprised at that. I think, as I said before, I would like to see Dylan Richardson get another start, but I think there'll be a lot more familiar names in the team that play America than there were. There'll be a lot less Googling on Friday night.
Yeah, I think there's probably a bit of America. Obviously, we got stung there before.
Yeah.
By possibly not giving them the respect that they deserve, or giving ourselves respect of, listen, we need to maintain a standard. Because that's Scotland are, we finish second to teams often, but very close, because we've raised their game against the All Blacks, or it's like, we played really well, but we lost. And then you go against some other teams and the level's not quite there, and we're not able to be the favourites and dictate, no, this is where we're going to go. And I get your point. We probably could have put more points on Canada. So that maybe backs up what I'm saying. The 20s had, there's always going to be a lull in a game, no matter what. But to stick 100 on teams that should have had 100 stuck on them, they did that. They probably achieved. They'd be disappointed against Samoa that they conceded points. So that was better against Hong Kong. But they did what they did. Scotland, me moaning about the tour, but we're going to have to go and dominate America, keep them to 0, and put a stack of points on for us to probably go, well, that's what it should be.
Yeah, and that's it. I think, like, if I was being hyper critical, I think one of the people who would have been pretty frustrated about the sort of spells where Scotland dropped off, I think, is Steve Tandy, because Canada scored. I mean, they scored 2 tries, but it felt like they came a wee bit too easy. I think Scotland in the past have looked, pretty comfortable defensively. I think I didn't get that feeling on Saturday night. I felt like when we were up against it, some of those players panicked a wee bit, but that's maybe not the case, and Canada just executed their 2 moves well. But I think I'd like to see, I think particularly the 2 games in South America, I think I'd have more of a focus on the defensive aspect than how many points we score. Like, if Scotland win those 2 games 25-0, that would be better for me than winning 75-20.
Yeah, I kind of get what you mean. I think all 4 of these games, the target will be penalty count very low.
Yeah,
keep them to 0, and we execute. I wonder how things go between the whistles, between the games. I wonder how things go, because, and maybe this just sums up why I never made it, but you've just finished in Canada, you're playing America next. You should win. There's a big mental bit here of keeping the boys focused on, look, this is not a holiday year, and there's a chance for you to show us in everything you do, the way you conduct yourself in the hotel, on the bus, the way you speak to the staff, how you train, how you perform. Are you picking up, all those little bits that go, you've mentioned it a few times, if you're picking a World Cup squad, there's more than just what happens on the pitch. There's how you function, how there's new boys in there. If you're one of the old boys, have you welcomed them in? If you're one of the new boys, are you getting in amongst this? So there'll be a lot of learning there. I just wonder what it's like. What are they doing today?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You definitely are right that there's a lot more to the tour than these games that they play, and I think that is the bit that could be invaluable for Gregor and the coaches, to see some of these players like a Pierre Schumann or a Ewan Ashman in a more senior role, a Scott Cummings in a more senior role within the squad, and then how do people like Ewan Johnson and Will Hurd and Aaron Reid actually fit into the dynamic of the group, and what do people bring off the field, as well as how good are they a rugby player. But clearly, it was just from a very brief conversation that we had at the Hive on Sunday. Clearly, somebody has dropped the ball almost quite literally, because you were showing me some pictures of the trophy that the 2 teams played for.
Loved that. And the Scotland boys obviously left it in a boozer, and folk picked it up and took photos with it and took it on a pub crawl and had all sorts, filling it up with beers and drinking it, and then returned it to the Canadian Rugby Board to say, by the way, we found this. I love that. I think. But did you see the CAP presentations?
I haven't seen them.
There was a video of it. It looked, I don't know, but it looked like they did it just out. Like, it wasn't. So I don't quite know what happened there, but it looked quite relaxed, shall we say? Which I don't have an issue with at all. I think it's great, and there's so many boys. I saw pictures of Matt Curry. His old man sent me a picture of Matt with his bonnet on, just sitting at a table, just with his Scotland cap on. It's like, yeah, that's class.
There's definitely a gag there in the whole trophy thing, that Scotland have won a trophy, and we've been so bamboozled by the fact that we've left it somewhere.
Yeah. I saw somebody had commented saying maybe it's because we've got too many. Not sure any there's no many Scottish sports folk can say, "Oh, we've got too many."
No, I think we'll take. Well, they might not be the trophy that ultimately we all want to win, but I think anytime we get our hands on one, I think we should just celebrate it.
Let's take some silverware. my mate that's with the All Blacks was saying it went by in an absolute blur. It's his first involvement with the All Blacks. Absolute blur. He says he's not even sure he saw it. And then there was a wee video clip on Facebook, and it starts with him about to go on the pitch because he's checked the pH levels before he runs on to give the boys their water. Very proud of my mate Adam Hay, but that one took me by surprise. I didn't think it was going to be that close. And looking further ahead, England gathering momentum and gathering pace does not bode well for a Six Nations.
No, it doesn't. But I think that the All Blacks, that's the poorest the All Blacks will ever play under Razor. I think that, they had a couple, 10 days, 2 weeks together to sort themselves out. I think he basically said I was reading something in the New Zealand media that basically they had ripped the script up, totally started again, and it was basically an entirely fresh playbook, completely different way of playing. We've talked about Damien McKenzie before, but they had him at 10, so which speaks to a completely different game. So actually, was a surprise that they kind of didn't hit their best. Not really. I think that'll come. I think the whole Eden Park thing this weekend will be too much. I think they haven't lost there in 30 years. That to me is. Can you imagine going to Murrayfield and saying Scotland haven't lost here?
But they've not played all their games there.
No, they haven't. To be fair,
Scotland are Scotland undefeated at Rugby Park. We lost at Pittodrie.
Yes, we will be undefeated at rugby. We should play more games in Kilmarnock.
Correct.
That's it. It started here. The campaign to move Murrayfield to Kilmarnock.
Is it that? So I think Tim Visser gets pelters for that. Oh no, it was Tonga. They got beat by Tonga in Pittodrie, wasn't it?
That's right. Yeah, 2012.
Yeah. That was a real highlight of Scottish rugby history, wasn't it?
Yes, I think that sort of period when that game cost Andy Robinson his job, and then we had a year of Scott Johnson was an interesting character on and off the pitch. I think before Vern came in, it was interesting.
Here's a Scott Johnson story. So I'm speaking at Peebles Rugby Club, right, and Scott Johnson's the other speaker. And I said to Peebles, look, do you want me to bring him down? Because I'm coming down for Edinburgh. No, he's happy to get himself there. But if you can take him home, that'll save us a taxi fare. No bother, I'll take him home. And Peebles Rugby Club's on the high street, and you have to go away through the back. And I don't know if it's improved now, but there's no mobile phone signal in the rugby club.
It's terrible.
So I'm there reasonably early. We're having a laugh. No sign of Scott Johnson. And Jim Curry, Peebles legend, Jim's organised it. And, whenever I see Jim Curry's name on the display of my phone, I start worrying. But the invite to speak at dinner, brilliant. So I'm doing it, and Jim's all over the place. What's wrong, Jim? Scott Johnson, he's not here yet. It's right. Well, if he got his nothing, go and stand outside and see. So Jim goes outside. And obviously, I've been at People's Rugby Club. I don't know how many times. I know where it is. So Jim goes outside. Scott Johnson phones up. Mate. Couldn't find the rugby club. Isn't even in Peebles. Jim hasn't sent him the rugby club postcode. He sent him his farm postcode.
Oh, no.
So Scott Johnson's driving about country roads trying to find Peebles Rugby Club. And Jim's gone, for sake, and trying to get... So we're going to have to start. Because they're wanting to serve the meal and out. Just waiting for Scott Johnson. So we're in. Scott Johnson arrives. He just thought he was a guest. He just thought he'd been invited because he was Scott Johnson. And they're like, no, you're a speaker. He's like, oh, mate. So Scott Johnson gets up and starts telling some stories. And then they took us through. They didn't want me, but I had to go because I was one of the speakers. They took us through to the committee room, and they pretty much parked us in the corner, and we couldn't get out. And I just sat kind of laughing. I was the newsreader that wasn't speaking, just going,
yeah.
And they're just grilling him. They're just going at him. But he was just honest with everything. Oh, mate. And he just throwing it right back at him. And then I gave him a lift, and then he gave me even more that I can't repeat. But I know he got pelters, but I got on brilliantly with him. We had a great laugh. But it still makes me laugh that Jim Curry had him driving all around the countryside in Peebles trying to find a rugby club.
I think that says, that kind of sums the. I'm not sure if that says a lot about Scott Johnson. Scottish rugby, Scotland head coach at the time, out of touch with the grassroots, or if I'm being unkind. But
Jim Curry's a tech whiz. Him and Bill Gates are big mates. Some boy Jim, great guy, love him a bit. Anyway, some of the other internationals, mate. Ireland and South Africa. That's a weird relationship that worries me. Some of the rubbish they throw, not the players, but some of the rubbish that you see coming back and forward and moaning about referees and they thought they were going to win and all this kind of stuff. That's not a good look, is it?
It's not. I think, it's a without getting pelters from both Irish and South African rugby, particularly on Twitter. I think
none of them are watching Scotland Rugby News podcast, mate, so I wouldn't worry about it.
Let's not be so sure about that once they find out that we've given them absolute dog's abuse. 41 minutes in, they'll all be scrolling right through this YouTube. Nah, look, it's a weird relationship. It is pretty strange. But I think more recently it's become strange with the players and stuff as well. Like,
a lot of them have spoken out, haven't they?
Aye, and I think they've developed this real dislike for each other, and then obviously the South Africans have turned Zombie into Razzie, and there's elements of that are all a bit of good fun, but there are also parts.
There's an edge to it.
Yeah, there is a real edge, and actually, talking about edges, I spoke to WP Nell last week, and to go back to what we were talking about with Scott Johnson and after him, Vern, I thought that was an interesting point that he said that Scotland don't have, and I think he's right, Scotland don't have an edge at the minute. And actually, if we're going to win anything, we need to be more like that. We need to be more confrontational, yes, but play right on the line of what a referee will let you away with.
Well, look at Glasgow. Look at Matty Fagerson standing up to Pom and just going, right.
And that might be the I think that might be. Honestly, that happened not far from in front of us in Thomond Park. And even though Glasgow were behind in the game at that time, the whole atmosphere just changed, because I think folk in the stands, but also the Munster players, realised that actually they weren't going to they weren't going to intimidate Glasgow into rolling over. And I just want to see that from Scotland in November, and it's hard with the current situation, but November and the Six Nations, yes, we can play all this great rugby, but I want to see us stand up and get in folks' faces. And I think there was an example of that. Nobody ever likes seeing a player seriously injured, and the injury to Craig Casey looked a nasty one. But when he was lying on the ground, having been poleaxed by RG Sneeman, there was a couple of the Irish boys just let him walk past. And there was a few folk on social media saying, well, if somebody's hurt my teammate, accidentally or otherwise, should we not be having a bit of push and shove? Now, I can see both sides. The push and shove thing is a waste of time and a bit daft.
But it's the mental, emotional bit, isn't it? And RG he's a big bully.
Last time I saw him play, he got flattened by Max Williamson. So, who knows? Maybe Max Williamson's the man to solve Scotland's problems.
You're right, though. But that's look at Scotland football. Everybody loves Scotland football, but that's because we didn't challenge anybody. Of course, our fans were great, because what else were they going to do? Go on the rampage and trash the place because we didn't do very well. There's an element of when you're good, folk didn't like it. The All Blacks are respected by everybody, but there's a lot of people love to see them get beat because
they're called Australians, I think.
There's a few Springboks too. England, the French are a funny one, I think, because most people like the French, but they all know and the French still live up to their or sometimes live down to their stereotype. Like England, every time England play, it's the opposition's cup final because everybody wants to beat England, and you know that everybody's going to cheer. Like I was at Murrayfield when Fiji beat England, and I can remember people going, "Oh, just because it's against England." I would have cheered if Fiji had beaten anybody. It wasn't about England; it was about Fiji because we all like Fiji didn't have an edge because we all love Fiji. They're our second team, like Langham. We all love Langham, and we all love Fiji. Hey.
The first time, and hopefully the last time I ever hear Langham and Fiji in the same sentence.
Nah, you kidding me on? They are. Like everybody's second favourite team are Langham, and everybody's second favourite team are Fiji.
But you know what? Fiji don't need an edge because actually they play so just like straight up and down. I'm here to be confrontational. They've got folk like Botia and Big Bill Mata that just run over the top of folk, but actually they can all of them, 1 to 15, 23 and beyond, all do the like ridiculous Serevi like goose steps, and you know they're probably all quicker than you or I have ever been, which isn't probably saying much.
No question there, my friend.
You know what I mean? Like
apart from the buffet, apart from breakfast buffet, watch me. First 3 yards, I'm gone.
Do you know something? I think that's the only place I'd give you a run for your money.
So we're one of the bits of news that caught me today. Chloe Rowley is going to Ealing Trailfinders. I think there's going to be more there. They're obviously, you know, Ealing are a funny club, aren't they? They're a bit like Gretna back in the day at football. you kind of wonder if it's on solid foundations, but there's some great folk down there, and the women's team they're getting pretty serious about this.
Yeah, they are, and actually, without getting into a huge debate about the Premiership and the mess that is English rugby, Ealing Trailfinders should be a Premiership club because they finished top of that league last season and didn't meet the minimum criteria to go up. I know that's been changed now, so hopefully if they win it next year, that won't be the case. But yeah, they've been on the rise for a while now. There was interesting talk about maybe them in a partnership with the Ospreys. I see Ospreys are away to St Helens. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see kind of what happens there. I think, as you say, there might be more coming in terms of the women's team and Scots involved. But yeah, I think Chloe Rowley is an interesting one because she was obviously turned pro in 2017 with Lisa Thompson, then went to France, and now she's played for 3 of the Premiership clubs. This will be her 4th, is that right? Yeah.
Well, but Tomo's bounced around as well to a certain extent. You know, Rona, I think, is probably taking things in her own hands. Brilliant to see Emma Orr going south. I think she needs that exposure.
Yeah, I think that's a really good move. I think that when you see somebody like Fran McGee playing for Leicester and the way that she's developed over the last probably 18 months.
Well, Corinne Grant as well. Corinne Grant's made massive leaps forward.
Yeah, and playing at that level and actually playing against some of your international teammates, but playing against international quality players every week is a massive step up. I think it'll be interesting. The thing about Emma's move to Bristol is that you could actually end up with her and Meryl Smith playing in the centre together. And I think from a Scottish point of view, having these combinations who can know each other's game, who can read each other, is like totally invaluable.
The Meryl one's interesting though, because you know they had a crack at her at 15 and Chloe had to sit on the bench.
Yeah.
Because Meryl is in that she's really good, but we're not sure where to put her. Because Tomo has the experience at 12. Emma Orr is absolutely the number 13. You know, Nelly at 10 is still, I think, first choice and will be moving forward, and she's a leader. Chloe at 15's got all that experience, so you're then going, right, where do we put Meryl? And at Bristol Bears, not my daughter, Holly Aitchison can play 12, sometimes plays at 10. So but I think that coming back to the point about Fran McGee, even just getting into those teams means they're having to work a shed load harder, which can only be good.
100% agree. I think that's a real positive. I think like, don't get me wrong, the Celtic Challenge has made massive strides in giving players, domestic players here, a pathway that they can show themselves, they can reach a higher ceiling. I think, though, for players that are demonstrate that higher ceiling earlier, we need as many of them to say, look, get them into that Premiership. It's an established league. It's got all the best players in it. Get in there, and if you're playing week in, week out at that level, it can only be a good thing for the Scottish game, I think. And then where you can backfill that Scotland squad is from Edinburgh and Glasgow with people like, obviously Alex Stewart's a bit of an anomaly, but people like Merrin Gunderson, Leah Bredner-Holden, who, and these types of players.
I don't know if I can't imagine it can happen with the way finances are, and that's way beyond my pay scale to have a understanding of that. But to have a Scottish team in that league now, this is where it becomes weird and wonderful. But even if they didn't play in the league, but they played every team. So if they were able to play kind of almost like that kind of A-League idea that a Glasgow, Edinburgh select. So it's not Scotland, it's a Thistles or a whatever you want to call it. Glasgow, Edinburgh kind of select, go down and they play Loughborough Lightning. They play whatever, Hartbury, Gloucester. They go and play a game. So they're at that level, which is above the Celtic Challenge, but it's more of a select team is probably what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get your point. I think I'm sure we'll talk about this in another podcast, but we haven't quite reached that A-League level with an ends game yet. So I think I would love to see it. That doesn't mean it shouldn't happen for the women's game first, but I think that the logistics of it are probably too challenging. That said, I think it would be a great opportunity for people, like Sarah Denham, who plays captain of Edinburgh, Rhea Clark, captain of Glasgow. Are they going to earn a move to the Premiership? Maybe not. But do they deserve an opportunity to play at the absolute highest they can? Ultimately, I think that's what every rugby player aspires to, male or female.
I know it's you're right. It's another pod, but it's tough when they get to they're in a job, and then it's like, right, how do I find an employer that will allow me that time, or am I able to say cheerio to that and go? It bothers me, but I'm so pleased to see so many of the women properly standing up, and I would love to think in 4 years' time, come the Olympics, we've got Emma Orr going to the Olympics in the sevens, because I think she's had to put that a wee bit on sevens on hold. But I know previous coach was interested in looking at it, but she's one, Tomo's maybe not got another one in her. Rona, I hope, comes back, has another go. I'm pretty sure Shona will attempt to have another go. You just never know what life's going to do for them between now and then. But Emma, I would love to think she could go and have a crack at being an Olympian in 4 years' time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that there's a lot of potential for a lot of people on the horizon. Obviously, the World Cup's next year, which they are more or less guaranteed to be at. I think that there's a lot, the first Women's Lions Tour has to be a target for some of them, and Emma's definitely one of them. Evie Gallagher, for me, is another. Lana, I think there's no reason, there shouldn't be any reason why there couldn't be 4 or 5 Scots in that squad and actually pushing for places, So now
Evie Gallagher's class. Gee, she's a
sensei and could play anywhere in that back row quite
absolute
easily.
Mongrel. I think she's the way she goes about things it's one of those complete disregard for her own safety, because she'll stick her head where sane people wouldn't. I think she's class. Right, mate. We can go and do a bit of stretching before pre-season starts tomorrow. You ready for it?
I think my pre-season. I don't even know if honestly don't even know where my boots are.
Shocking. I'm back tomorrow. First pre-season session. Not playing, just blowing a whistle and telling for what to do. So I'm looking forward.
That nearly frightened me. I thought you were.
I've been running again because I got pelters for having 2 puddings at the Merky Sports Awards dinner. I had 2 sticky toffee puddings. Magic.
I mean, if the sticky toffee pudding was good enough, you'll not get me telling you not to have two.
Oh, sticky toffee pudding! I tell you what, I could swim in that stuff.
Oh,
Cream or ice cream?
Oh, ice cream.
Aye, first choice, but I would always take cream as well. I took myself away. That there was you can actually buy 2 microwavable ones in a local supermarket just along the road there. And my wife happened to be out that night, so I had 2 of them as well. But I bought myself a wee cheeky tub of double cream. Tell you what.
Hold on a minute. Have you had 4 sticky toffee puddings in one night?
No. Whoa, no. I had 2 one night and 2 another night.
Right, okay.
I'm not a pig. Come on.
Even I was thinking I was going to have to intervene there when you had gone home from the sports awards and had another 2.
No.
Deary me.
I did have a chip anyway. I never had a chip anyway. Anyway, mate, absolutely class.
Before you go, where are you back? What's the situation?
I'm going to go back. I was with Murrayfield Wanderers a couple of times. I had a little break in between where I went to Boroughmuir. We won a
not that anybody would know it.
Nah, 55-17 we won that cup final. So Alex Godmark, Ryan James, Stoddy are coaching Murrayfield Wanderers, and they've been really kind and let me come back. And I'm going to go to pre-season tomorrow night. They've got their first session tomorrow, so I'm buzzing to see
what's your official title?
Cone collector, I think. Cone collector and grumpy old man that'll tell them that's not how I would have done it. That's not
how it happened in my day. Do you know what? You'll fit the bill perfectly.
Do you know I miss Clubland massively, and I kind of understand why people are not there, because life just is different. But I miss it, and whenever I go, I absolutely love it. And you meet so many folk. Like at the Hive yesterday, I know that's not Clubland, but you know, I met so many folk. I played with Malcolm McVie back in the dim and distant past, and to see his boy playing well, and he's so proud of his boy. I spoke to Robbie Deans's folks, who I've known for a long time, and his big brother Thomas, who was a cracking player. He's now taken up shinty, believe it or not.
So interesting segue.
So it was just brilliant. It's like, mate, and that's, I saw you, and we have a wee chat, and life's just a wee bit better when you get to mix. And I would like more folk to go to rugby clubhouses.
100%. Couldn't have put that any better myself. I think it's given me an awful lot over the years, and I think I know so many people that have got so much out of it. So yeah, it's nice to be able to give a bit back.
Yeah, and you told me to keep these to 40 minutes, and we're about to hit 58. So that's 18 minutes of injury time that we've played there, big man.
Must have been a few VAR checks, TMOs.
There's a few substitutions, few yellow cards for taking tops off after goals, so it's all happened. Mate, great to see you. Enjoy Friday.
Certainly not for me.
Enjoy Friday at the Hive. I'll not be there, but I'll be keeping an eye on it. I'm a bit gutted I'm not there. I'll be on a train on the way back up for London Village, but I'll be keeping an eye on it. I hope they win it, because I think they need to and get back up into the top tier. But great to see you. Keep doing the good stuff. Love you. Enjoy it, and I'll catch up with you soon. This has been Scotland Rugby News. You know the drill. £1 for 6 months, then you'll get charged a rake. So you'd be better doing the 12 months. Come on, get involved. Subscribe. You get to read all his stuff, and he's very good. He's actually very good. You're very good at what you do, big chap. You're very good. Good to see you. Enjoy yourself.
You too.
Love you. Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Bruce.